Yeah, that is a criticism that they have gotten recently. So
Hmm.
we will discuss the controversy as well.
Controversy.
Controversy? Well, whether or not there's too many flashbacks and not enough story. And
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's all a flashback, isn't it? In essence, so
yeah, well, I thought it might be a nice topic to discuss here, but we can get
Interesting.
into it, and you can say how much you want to see in it or not. But let's start the show.
Do it.
Avast me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. Arg, I be your Captain Charlie the Professor Esser, and with me as always is Miss Skinny Rich Friend.
It's Mozz.
In a world of sand, which gets everywhere, a man stands to face the gathering storm. This is the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 4. Boba partners with Fennec Shand. Our director this week is Kevin Tancharoen. Writers this week, we have Jon Favreau, George Lucas, and Noah Clore as our staff writer, hardest working man in show business, as always. And yeah, this gets the written by and created by for Jon Favreau. And that is our team. Oh my goodness.
Tancharoen, that name sounds familiar. Like there was
Yeah,
a Netflix show that person was involved in. That name sounds very familiar.
no. So what it is, Jed Whedon now goes by Jed Tancharoen because his wife is Tancharoen.
How
And they
interesting.
produced Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for Joss Whedon.
Ah,
As
interesting.
you may have heard, Joss Whedon is a bit of a persona non grata. Not going to put cheese on his potatoes anymore. And so as a result, at some point, Jed, I think, started using his wife's last name. But yes, but his wife, who also shares the same last name as this gentleman, though I don't know if they're related or not.
Hmm.
You know,
Okay, that's
as we
interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, because I got confused there too. Because at first I thought it was the guy from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. who was utilizing the name. So it was not. It was different. So,
Wow.
but yes, but the name is very familiar because the Tancharoens, and like I said, this guy may be related to Jed's wife, which would make perfect sense because it's Hollywood. Everybody knows each other.
Hmm.
Everybody works in the same biz, and regardless, it's very fascinating and very enjoyable. But in this episode, let me think here. Do we open up
Yeah, we open up
in the
back
back?
in the back to tank,
We're back in
but
the
this
back to tank.
time there's an interesting conversation. They're like, "Hey, you're fully healed," meaning that that's not just like a nightly ritual that he partakes in
Mhm.
all the time. It's just something happened to him recently that he's trying to recover from, and it's been taking him
Yeah,
months and months and months,
yeah.
right?
Well, he's had a rough go, and I get the feeling he has not had access to a back to tank until just recently.
Ah,
So I get the
ah,
feeling like there was not a back to tank in Slave One.
fair enough.
That he has been just sort of having to heal the old fashioned way um, up until now. Because there's even a line in this where, Fennec says to him, you need to get yourself to a back to tank.
Hmm.
Um,
I guess in the Mandalorian, he's already healed because you don't see that many scars on him when he's in the Mandalorian, right?
no, you don't. But by the time well, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's debatable. Because that's one of the big things about the flashbacks in this is how essentially there is an arc that we kind of get to the end to at this one. At the end of this one,
Hmm.
I think that's our last flashback, because I feel like last uh that is the last moment of the of the flashbacks that bring us up to date, because after this is when they go and partner with uh the Mandalorian,
Oh.
and then they come back at the end to take out Bib Fortuna. So
Huh.
within this structure, and that's sort of the question, is would this show had been better if you had opened, so, and I think people will point out that this opens up, well, no, because it opens up at Jabba's barge, doesn't it? Or does it open up um
No, it
after?
opens up in the back to tank, and I think you
No, no,
immediately
no, I
go
mean the
into
very
his med.
first episode. The very first
Oh.
episode of this. I'm trying to remember, because the idea is that you could have set this immediately after that, rather than have this be all flashbacks. You could have established this original arc, and then you have the separation episode that basically gets to this episode with Fennec Shand, and then they join up with the Mandalorian, and then they come to the comeback. But I can see how that's problematic too, because then you don't get the gangster story that we want to tell. So trying to figure out, how do we tell this gangster story? Because we have this entire Wikipedia entry for what happened when he gets out of the Sarlacc pit. Everyone wants to know that, but they also are going to want to see what we're going to do with the gangsters. But we are going to have this big jump in the middle here where the entire Mandalorian season fits.
Hmm.
But yeah, that is the complexity of it, obviously. Anyway.
So I think we start here in his memories in the desert when he finds Finnick.
Yes.
And so right away they're taking us back to the Mandalorian.
Right. So it comes with
and then
Fennec,
showing us what happened in that moment.
and he takes her to a mod parlor, as he says, which is basically where you intentionally get not just having your hand cut off or getting cut in half by a Jedi, but because you actually want to have these enhancements put on your body. You want to be a cyborg. And honestly, it's weird to me because it really looks like she's already dead. In fact, there were times when she was on the operating table and they made her look really waxy. Like, this is just a corpse. But no, they can fix it, because that's where technology is in this galaxy far, far away, It's like, no. Yeah, they're mostly dead.
Right. Maybe in this sort of society, they figured out somehow how to keep the force connected to a body long after all conventional vital signs have faded. And with that connection, they can spark some sort of rebirth.
And I do think that is exactly what it is. And when you see Fennec, and it's a fun scene. I get the feeling there was,
it was pretty tongue in cheek, wasn't it? I mean, like, their mod seemed unnecessary. Like, it's a tiny laser, but you need like a giant contraption to control like this tiny little pin. It's like it was just over the top. I thought I hope it was intentionally funny, because it was funny.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to that as far as any kind of alien tech goes. I find most alien tech to be a little odd in general. As has been pointed out, that people are still using walkers when wheels were invented, like, a billion years ago. So, It's just the and to be fair, the mods clearly are about aesthetics. So it's not just about modifying part of your body.
Right.
It's about having it look cool when you do it. It's like steampunk.
Right.
It's not
Exactly.
enough. It's not enough that we get this cool laser beam. No, I want it to be polished, and I want it to flip out.
And I want it to be purposefully inconvenient.
Exactly. Because that's how cool it is.
Right.
Right. It's interesting though, because of course she wakes up and then she goes, I guess I'm worth more alive than dead. And he says to me, at least, and it gets into this interesting thing about, are they going to, what is their goal? And, Boba's like, I saved your life, you owe me, but I'm not going to sell you. I'm not going to exploit you in this way, but I do need help getting my ship back. And I love when they go back to Jabba's palace and they release the little floaty, which reminded me of the floaters they had in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where they send in the little dwarf to go and record everything, which I thought was neat. And that's how they make their plan. They siege the palace, of course, and defeat the monstrous kitchen droids.
My favorite thing is though that like he knows, he goes, I don't know what he's expecting, but he's expecting like maybe under 20, like around 15. My guess is that's what he was expecting, the amount of security presence there. This thing sees like 5 times that many security guards, and her response is, we're going quiet.
Yeah.
Like to her, it was just routine. It was just like, okay, yeah, we're just going quiet. It's like, I do this all the time. Trust me, I got this. That's great.
And
I thought that was cool.
To be fair, it works,
Yeah. No, she knew what she was doing.
She does. She is very much the power behind the man.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the fact that they clearly have a relationship building in this. Because it is literally, Boba is like, I just want my ship back. You're free to go. And then it's like, even when they have the discussion at the end, it is that idea, well, the end of that portion, even in that aspect, it is this idea that, you can stick with me, because she's like, well, look, I'll still work for you. That's fine. I'm happy to work for the money, but I have to be my own person. And he's like, no, look, I'm going to offer you something no other employer ever did. And that's loyalty, which sounds like we treat all of our employees like a family here. But, you want to hope for more than that from good old Boba Fett. But
no, but he clearly says to her, I pledge to use my life to save yours.
Yeah.
And and that's a rare commodity in a far-flung world where ties are hard to manage.
And that is the question. It's like, is Boba a guy you can trust on this? And I think that at this point, Fennec believes he is.
Yeah.
And I think most people would, because that's the thing about Boba. Boba is interesting. Although it also is interesting in that Fennec also doesn't believe that the speeder bikers killed the Sand People. So that's definitely going to come back again.
I hope so.
That
because I would love to know that the Tuskens put up more of a fight. Mm-hmm. That a bunch of ragtag group of pillagers weren't able to overtake the mighty warriors of the Tusken Kingdom.
And to be fair, it's sort of a play on what happened with Luke's family when in a nice parallel, Vader intentionally made it look like the Tuskens killed Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, in the same way that Anakin's mother was killed by the Tuskens. Again, trying to feed that hate into Luke at that first episode. And then, but of course, it takes Obi-Wan to say, no, look, this was not the Tuscans. The tracks are not right, and the hits are much too precise. Which, again, we also maybe learned was maybe all BS from Obi-Wan, but still was true, you know? And in this case, it is this idea that the Pikes most likely are using this biker gang as their front, as this group that they're paying for muscle, but really they're just there so that
that's probably how the Pikes collect protection money from all the other businesses, under the guise of, oh, we're paying it too.
Yeah, well, and the idea would be that they can equip these speeder bikers with heavy armor as needed, and perhaps even heavy reinforcements as needed. And you know, it becomes that they just become one more pawn on the board to the Pikes, because it is clear the Pikes are the big bad of this.
Right. I wish they would make them, you know, seem intimidating somehow, because I feel like the sense you got when they came off that Freightliner and they were coming to this planet, right? There was like this dramatic music playing. Like they wanted you to feel like in Dune when the Sardaukar dropped down, you're like, oh my God, this is this, like, you know, mighty fighting force. You didn't get any sense of that. I was like, oh, I thought they were just a bunch of politicians showing up. And then later conversation, you're like, oh, they were supposed to be like these, you know, these military super fighters. But I was like, oh, okay. But every exposure we've had to them thus far on the show, they've just been kind of like, you know, the politicians. They talk good and they understand politics. I never saw them as a threat of any sort, unless they're hiding behind, you know, their slitted carts on a fast moving bullet train.
Yeah, but you know what? They may have lots of slitted carts on fast moving bullet trains, because that's what makes you a great warrior. I mean, even Boba Fett says it in this episode, which is like, I'm much more intimidating with my armor, you know. And that's the thing, is in the Pikes, it's like, no, we're just a simple aquatic race that deals in spice. But you know what? We actually have all the weapons and all the armor, and we are a coordinated, unified team that has drilled and drilled and drilled. We're not a ragtag bunch of moisture farmers here, you know?
They remind me of frogs. It'd be cool if there was like one species of them that shot poison darts. That would be really cool.
Well, and again, that may be something that they don't often use, but that they can. You know, that's one of those weird things. We're like, oh no, actually, our species, yeah, we shoot poison darts.
Poison, no, not poison pike darts that make you hallucinate.
Yeah, who knows, man? I mean, it would be very interesting to see them explore something like that.
Yeah.
But you know, and that's the thing, is like, as far as what makes Pikes, you know, I mean, and that's sort of one of those things. It's like, you don't necessarily think of the Hutts per se as intimidating. I mean, yes, they're bulky, and we can imagine a Hutt being just a beast, having a massive soak, you know, having lasers just bounce off their dense flesh, you know, as they crush you under their mighty mollusk, you know, I guess, gastropods that they are. And, but, you know, a lot of things can not necessarily look intimidating, but actually be very powerful. I mean, just in the fact that there are so many species that are so attuned to the Force that they can see a Jedi mind trick coming from a mile away. And a lot of these species don't seem particularly impressive per se, like Watu species, or the Hutts are, you know, like with the Hutts, you think it's force of will, but with Watu, you realize, oh no, he knows what the Force is, and he knows you're doing a Jedi mind trick. That doesn't work on him, you know. We know what Jedi do. None of us think it's all that cool. And you know what? Stop it. You want to deal? We can deal.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, that's the thing. So the Pikes may well be maybe just an unassuming race, like arguably humans are. Humans are a very unassuming race. We have no super strength, no claws, but they may have all sorts of other sidelines that really up their ante,
Yeah. Yeah.
both culturally, spiritually, physically, they
Technologically.
technologically, yeah. I'm not sure if these are the same species that were doing the trade embargo or not. I feel like they are, but I could be wrong.
Don't
Um,
remember.
that was in episode one.
Hmm.
Those are the ones that had the kind of somewhat Oriental accent when they were speaking with Emperor Palpatine. Well, pre-Emperor Palpatine. But anyway, so
You meant the movie episode one. I don't remember
yeah.
that. I thought you meant episode one of the show. I was like, man, I don't remember that. I remember Palpatine being in. It's like, what was I
No,
watching?
no, no, no,
Oh,
no, I'm
oh,
sorry.
oh. Okay, right,
I'm
right.
mixing my movies and
No,
my
no, no,
TV
no. Yeah,
shows.
it took me a
Yes,
second.
that's fine. But yeah, I mean, I find it very interesting um, who the Pikes are, what they're doing, and I did like that. Even though there's a question about whether the speederbikers did it, they still go and just massacre the speederbikers anyway.
I
Um,
think no, no. I think what she intimated was that it couldn't have only been the bikers. I mean, I think they had pretty solid confirmation that the bikers were there and involved. But she found it hard to believe that it could have been only the bikers.
yeah, I think
So
that's a fair cop too. And then we go to the Pikes and the
yeah,
logical line that the Pikes are the ones. The Pikes have been the ones running the show. That when Jabba's empire collapsed, um, everyone sort of went their own ways. There was a image of a what do they call it? Dagon still in charge. In Bib
daimyo.
Fortuna. Daimyo, thank you. A daimyo still in charge with Bib Fortuna. But really, Bib Fortuna was barely a daimyo. All the families sort of went and did their own thing. And while everyone is divided, that's when the Pikes moved in. And once the Pikes moved in, all of these little fighting families aren't going to be able to do much. And that is where Boba is going to move into his place. I did like the scene with Black Chrysanthus in the casino.
I wish they would have, because I wish they would have showed him losing to those guys first, so I
Yeah,
knew why he was getting angry. I couldn't decide if he was just like a racist Wookiee or like what. You couldn't tell what his motivations were. He was just angry at them for having a good time.
I actually think
So,
it was. Yeah, I actually think it was. He was angry at them for having a good time. I think he is a racist Wookiee. I think he
oh,
because there was a line earlier about you know killing a sleeping uh whatever that race is. I forget what they're called. Um, Trandoshan.
Trandoshan's
That,
right,
yeah,
right.
I'm not some sleeping Trandoshan. It's just like you know. So I get the feel this guy really hates Trandoshans,
So okay, fair enough. Because yeah, that's how he came off. I
and
wanted
it's
to
just
think like,
like.
why would you like do that with a character you want us to like? You want him to be like have an edge, but like I don't know
I don't
what was the
know.
point of
Do
that
we want
scene?
to like him? Do we want to like him?
Yeah, he's like Mr. T. He's like B.A. Baracus. He's like the muscle, the cool guy who can like bust stuff up.
I just
He's
think
like
he's
their
the
Hulk. So you want to? I don't know.
yeah. Well, I kind of see him more. Have you ever seen The Dirty Dozen?
No.
Okay, when The Dirty Dozen, what's his name? Played Kojak. Telly Savalas plays a real awesome BA sociopath character. And by the end of it, you're like, oh, we weren't supposed to root for Telly Savalas' character.
Mm.
You get that Joker reveal, like, no, they're just crazy. And I think with Black Chrysanthus, that is something we're supposed to get here. Is like, this is a guy who is
But then you
just
immediately
full of
draft
hate
him
and
to the
anger.
good guys team. So I was like, oh, it must have been. He must have lost money to them. That's in my head. That's what the story I came up with. That's how it made sense to me.
Yeah, to me it was just a bunch of a bunch of rich, because I mean, even when the one and this is how I knew it wasn't anything of weight, is the one Trandoshan hits him with the bottle over the back of his head, and he just turns around, and it's like, why are you even still fighting? You know? And then you have Jennifer Beals comes out in her little headdress, and you know, Black Chrysanthus, this is above you. This is below you. What you're doing? Come on. You know,
It's a good speech. It's a good
it's
speech.
a
It was a good
great
attempt.
speech, which is where you can see this is going to be another ally of Boba's, because Boba sees the speech. Boba sees what she can do. Black
Right.
Chrysanthus, he's, you know, I get we all love Wookiees. They live hundreds of years. You can live 100 years and still be a dumb jerk. And
I
I get
want
this.
like
Yeah.
the
You want
first
him
time
to,
you saw him, you're like, oh man, that guy's awesome. I want to root for that guy.
well, you know, you're going to get to be able to root for our Rancor later, because he's a real lovable Rancor. He's got the big
Seems to
claws,
be going that way. Yeah.
but he's still, he loves his Boba, and Boba loves him. And that's, you know, it's like, that's the thing. It's like you can look like a monster and be a soulful, deep, and complex character, just like Chewbacca. Although Chewbacca was in the pits for a while too, and had no problem eating people. You know, that's the thing that to always remember in this universe. Sentience eating sentience is just an accepted moral norm.
And do like Trandoshans grow their arms back? They're lizards, right? So they must.
I mean, they might.
Because that's
They
why
might.
nobody seemed to care.
Well, I mean, it's one of these. Well, you know, here's what I'll say. Obi-Wan cut off that guy's arm and no one seemed to care either. And I get the feeling it might just be that, yeah, you know, that's, you know, just put some Bacta on that, stick it on. You know, you'll be in recovery for a month, you know. What can I tell you? It's
Yeah, you can't put Trandoshans in handcuffs.
yeah. But the idea is that in this universe you can get limbs cut off all the time. So, like,
I'd like to think that they can grow them back. The world would make more sense that nobody would care. Like either I would have to believe that Trandoshans are the lowest rung of society, like the lowest caste that nobody cares about, which would complicate the world so much that I don't want to think about it. So it's easier for me to think that they just grow their arm backs. That's the reason everybody's so flippantly like, all right, business as usual. Harry, hit the band. And then, you know, like.
Or see, I like my idea that you can just get that arm restuck back to you. I mean, he just ripped it off. It's not like he ripped it off and took it with him. He just ripped it off and he left it there. And it's like, okay. It's like, you know, it's like when you're a butcher and you cut your finger off accidentally. You have to go to the hospital and get it.
No, but they're lizards,
reattached.
though. Lizards have that ability. So I'd like to think
yeah,
that.
yeah, but it's like Deadpool can regrow an arm, but it's always easier when he can just stick his arm back on.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. It's like, it's a lot more time to grow the arm and a lot more energy, a lot more effort, maximum effort to regrow a limb. Whereas if you can just stick it back on, just stick it back on. Just put some Bacta on that, you'll be fine.
Back to Tustin.
Yes. I really want to know what Bacta is, because it does seem like a pretty universal heal-all. We have our meeting of the families of Tusken. Not of Tusken, of Tatooine, which I found was interesting. And it's also interesting just in the fact that they all decide, we're not going to back you against the Pikes. But yeah, we can say, well, we'll stay neutral in it. We have no interest in, because and he's right, that they know that if they help the Pikes are just going to run over them and still steal everything they have anyway. That the Pikes are going to take over if they have to. But if he stands up to the Pikes and he can get his muscle and he can build his little army against them to resist Pike interference, then it's going to look more profitable to be a little less. Basically, when you're fighting a defensive war, it's always best to be on the side of the defense than the guys trying to invade, especially when you're a semi-aquatic species trying to invade a desert planet. Just throwing that out there,
Yeah.
But I like this episode, even though it does seem like it was 2 different episodes, and the 2 storylines don't directly connect.
Right.
But they build out our lore. Like I said, it's a very complex question of whether or not you should have done the Book of Boba Fett of everything leading up to them taking over from Bib Fortuna, and then in season 2 with their taking over of the mob world. But I think that a lot of people really wanted to see what they were going to do with the mob world. So it's like there's no way you can slice it up and give all that backstory and give all of the intrigue that we're going to be building. So
yeah, and I had no problem with it. I didn't mind it at all.
Okay.
I thought it's been paced well, and the 2 stories have been woven together in an interesting way. Each little piece of his backstory gives you some insight into what's going to be happening in this episode and why he does the things that he does. So I thought it's been fine. I mean, the problems I've had with the show, the few minor gripes, were definitely in a different area of the production than their choice of timeline continuities and whatnot. My issues have been more aesthetic in a few places. Overall, I've really dug this one.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see what you think about the next episode, because it has a lot of interesting aesthetics in it, and is definitely something of a filler episode. But
how many episodes are we supposed to get?
Well, I think next is, so that was episode 5. Next, I kind of assume there's got to be more than 6, because we've already gone through a few.
5 is tonight, right?
Yeah, this was 5. Yeah, the one that just came today is 5. And I doubt they're going to end the whole thing tomorrow. So, or not tomorrow, but next week.
Next week, yeah.
So, yeah, I have to assume there's more to it. All right, Mozz, any final thoughts on tonight's episode?
Where did this one end?
This one ends just after the
just after families. The Rancor pokes his hands out from underneath, letting the family know, like, hey, I'm down here with you because I'm choosing to. I could be sitting up there. Oh, you don't think I have the power to? What are you gonna do if we don't? Hey, just letting you know. Hey, you don't have to go, but I'm sitting down here out of choice.
I know, and I think on a level on that, it was just that he was letting them know that he was rebuilding the power base that Jabba had. He was reestablishing the strengths that people knew Jabba for. And I like that he has his little baby Rancor there. It was very nice. Sad we didn't get a little more Danny Trejo, but you can't always have Danny Trejo. But yeah, and then they get to the end, and it is just this idea of they need muscle, and Fennec says, well, if you have money, I can get you muscle. I know where muscle can be bought, which is again, and this is another criticism of this, is that Boba is not prepared to be a mob boss, but Fennec definitely is. Like, Fennec could be a mob boss tomorrow. She has chosen not to. Boba wants to be a mob boss,
Right.
but he
Boba
doesn't
has
know.
the why for it. She doesn't have a why, really. She's searching for a
Exactly.
why, which is what he provides is so interesting and fascinating. It's a very interesting and worthwhile why. He has a very strong why. He has that willpower to force things in that direction. He cares enough to do it. She's just having fun and wants to be useful and productive in some way because otherwise life is boring.
Exactly. And now they're going to go find some muscle. So can't wait to see who all the muscle is.
Yeah.
All right, Maz. If everyone likes this show and wants to talk to you directly about it, how can they find you?
Or they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And of course, you can always talk to any of us here on the Capes and Lunatics Network at capesandlunatics@gmail.com. That's capes and lunatics spelled out, all one word, at gmail.com. Send us all a letter or send any one of us a letter and we'll get it and we'll read it on the air. Likewise, if you want to talk to us personally, call 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. Doing so will allow you to record a message about anything Book of Boba Fett related, the upcoming what's that Amazon show?
The boys.
The Boys related. Any of the shows we're going to cover here, including She-Hulk and Moon Knight and who knows what else. Talk to us and we will talk back to you. Call that number 614-382-2737. And likewise, just know we here are working for you, our fans. And if you go to Linktree, that's linktr.ee/Capes and Lunatics, then you'll be able to see merch for us. Sorry about that. As well as links to everything else we do, including our Patreon page, where if you become a Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you can participate in our worst superhero movie brackets of all time. You can vote, you can be a part of that, and you can listen to those shows for free. And all of our movie reviews are topless, at least partially. Meanwhile, if you'd like to write to me directly in the old-fashioned email way, the way our mothers and fathers once did, do so at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. Sorry about my voice, folks. And of course, follow me on the Twitter. I live tweet Naomi when I don't fall asleep beforehand because I'm sick with the C word at CHARLIEESSER. Look for the two E's in the middle. For what?
For quality. Bing. Oh boy.
Avast me hearties. Thank you for listening to another episode of Full Stream Ahead. We've enjoyed having you here. I've enjoyed having you here. I hope you learned a little something. Tune in next week when we once again sail full stream ahead. Arg. That is murder on the throat, by the way.
Oh my God, I can't imagine. How long have you been under the weather?
Well, I tested positive on Monday.
Oh.
And it's mild. It's like super mild, but it's like just annoying enough to cause problems. Because, we're vaxxed, we're boosted. So it's like, we're fighting it. And, my wife got it and then I got it. And then one of our kids got it. The other one, I think, still hasn't got it, but we don't know. Yeah.
That sucks.
It sucks. It sucks as it sucks. But, life continues. A
lot worse for a lot of other folks.
Exactly. I'm very grateful I was protected. So that's all you can do.
Indeed. Exactly.
All right, my friend. I will talk to you next week.
Have a good night, man. Hope you feel better.
You too. I will. I'm feeling mostly perfect.
And everybody else at home too.
Thank you.
Good night, man.
Good night.